Hey everyone, Voro here with a review on the 104-inch Aeroworks Extra 260. This is your standard 100cc size plane. Most range between 103 to about 109-inch wingspan. This plane was very simple to build. It's part of their famous Quick Build series, or QB, as you see down there. In this review, I'm basically going to go from the back of the plane forward, give you tips and tricks and ideas of what, if you're just introing to giant scale, what you want and what you need to do. So we're going to get the canopy off and start up here. Alright, so we got the canopy off, and I actually moved the plane indoors because it's getting really windy outside. So we're just in a barn right now where there's no wind and better lighting, honestly. So we're going to start off with the tail section of the plane. The tail section of any giant scale is going to be fairly conventional, what you're used to with your smaller planes. One minor difference is going to be there's going to be 2 servos minimum in every surface. So from 30cc to about 100cc, 120cc, you're going to find 1 servo per elevator half. What I mean is there's going to be 1 servo here and another servo here, and then there's not going to be anything connecting the 2 elevators together. So you can move this side and have the other side still straight down. So the servos work together instead of being connected. Instead of the elevator being connected as one, it's 2 separate pieces working as one. However, setting up the servos are going to be pretty much the same as you're used to. Elevator is going to be next. There's 2 ways you can set up the elevator. There's going to be direct drive, which is basically the same as your elevators and ailerons, with a bar pushing and pulling. In my opinion, I prefer the pull-pull system. If you're not familiar with pull-pull, it's basically there's going to be 2 wires on each side of the rudder, and they're both pulling, and basically they run through the fuselage up to somewhere in the center of it, and they're just going to be wires, so they're tight when they pull, but when you push, it doesn't matter. And the 2 servos work as one for a very strong. If you want to see back there, the wires go all the way back into the rudder section. And most of you have already experienced pull-pull systems. I like them a lot. A lot of it would depend on your center of gravity. If you want a more nose-heavy plane, or if your plane is very tail-heavy, a pull-pull would be smarter because the servos are up in the center. When you put even a little bit of weight way back there, it will offset it. So if you're a 3D flyer, you might want a direct drive. It'll make it a little more tail-heavy. It just really depends on your preference. My preference is I like it up here, and I'm a 3D flyer. So it just really depends on your personal preference. Next, we're going to move up to the receiver. There's 2 ways you can do a receiver. There's just a straight receiver with 2 battery packs, and then there's a power expander with a regulator and then a receiver connected to that. This is the more popular setup. It is a little more complex, but it's a little more popular. It just depends on what your preference is. My preference is honestly running everything straight into the receiver, and I'll explain how that works in a second. But for now, let's focus on the power expander. My board is a Smart Fly Regulator EQ6 with a JR 9-channel receiver on it. And then I'm running 2 lithium polymer packs into the power expander. So basically what this power expander does is it regulates all the voltage going through all the servos. It does a lot. I'll put a link down of what everything does. I'm not going to explain everything in this video, as it's going to be extremely long as it is. But it regulates voltage. It's set pieces. You can actually program servos with it, with some of the power expanders. So they're very good. There's a more popular route. If you're looking to go lightweight, the receiver is a lot lighter. Basically, it's going to be 1 solid receiver with either 3 or 4 satellites with 2 lithium polymer packs or life packs. About the packs, about the battery packs, you need to decide what you're going to run. With a giant scale plane, it's very popular to use either lithium polymer or lithium ion. Life is also coming up into popularity. I would prefer to use either life or lithium polymer, as I don't personally know a lot about lithium ion, but lithium polymer is lighter, more powerful, and in my opinion it's more reliable. So I use lithium polymer. I know some people that use life and lithium ion. It just all depends on what you want, your preference, your flying style. So the packs I'm using are going to be 2100 milliamp 2-cell 25C Pro lights from Thunder Power. These are a little on the expensive side. However, when you invest this much into a plane this big, you really want the highest of quality, because you don't want to see you stinge on 30 or 40 bucks and lose 1,000. So I would definitely pay the extra money to get the good servos, the good packs, the good receivers. If you're going to pay the money, get everything quality. So these are very good. They come in at 98 grams, which is extremely light for how big they are. Your standard 2200 2-cell or 3-cell is going to be about twice that. So I like these because they are super light and they reduce down the weight. So now we're going to move on to the gas tank. Setting this up is simple but very important of how you set it up. At the very bottom here, we're going to have about a 1-inch thick of foam, and you can do half or half to 1 inch. It doesn't really matter. Basically what you want this foam for is to reduce down the vibration caused by the engine. The gas engines do put out a lot of vibration. So you want the vibration down so when the gas tank moves, it also doesn't move against something rough. When it rubs against something rough, it could wear and tear on the tank, poke holes in it. Now you got a leak, and then you dead stick, and then you got gas dripping everywhere. Big mess. So put just a little piece of foam down there like that. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that when it does vibrate, the gas tank doesn't move and doesn't rub against anything. Which brings me to this. You see there's a space there between the gas tank and the fiberglass tube. You do not want your tank touching anything, wood or anything, especially not fiberglass or carbon fiber, as these two will really wear on the tank and you're going to get a hole in 3 or 4 flights. Definitely do not want that. So put a little space between them and then tie it down really secure, and you should have no issues at all. As far as placing the tank and locating the tank, it's best to put it as close to the center of gravity as possible. It's more popular to put it in front of the center of gravity opposed to back. This setup is what you're going to find in a lot of the big planes. You're going to see the gas tank in front of the center of gravity, and then the receiver and LiPo packs, and then the pull in the far back. The reason being you want the tank as far front is when the tank becomes lower in quantity, as far as later on in the flight, 5, 6, 7 minutes later, when it's lost almost a pound of weight, it will affect the center of gravity. With the bigger planes, it will affect it less, but with the smaller planes especially, the center of gravity does make a huge difference. With the giant scales like this, you won't see it very much, but the center of gravity does make a huge difference. So put that tank as close to the center of gravity and then build everything from there. Next, we're going to move on to the ignition. The ignition, again, is not going to be touching anything. It's not touching the tank, it's not touching the wood. You're going to want to put another piece of foam underneath it, just for the same reason, wear and tear, the vibration. You want to get rid of that vibration as much as possible. Now we're going to move on to the servos. Like I said before, you're going to want to pay for the high quality servos. You don't want to invest this much money for such a beautiful plane and then stinge on a bad servo. You want to get quality. I would either recommend the Hitec 7955s, is what I have, the titanium gears. These, in my opinion, are going to be the best bet for you. Or any titanium type gear servo. You can go metal gear. Futaba makes some very good metal gears. I don't know the exact code, but I can put a link down in my YouTube channel of what it is. And I'm running the same thing all across the wings, the rudder, and the elevator. Next, we're going to run into the throttle servo. There's a common misconception that the throttle servo doesn't need to be very strong, it just needs to be fast. This is true to an extent. However, you still want a very high quality servo because this is going to be in the peak of the vibration. The vibration of the engine is going to be right on top of it, and you're going to want a very high quality servo to take that vibration. Here I'm using a 7985 from Hitec, which is a very high quality metal gear servo, very fast, very high torque, but the vibration doesn't have a lot of effect on it. So it's very, very good. So now we're going to move on to the actual engine of it as we're going forward. I'm running a DA100. You can do a couple of different any 100 sizes. Most airframes are set up for a DA100, DLE111, and the fantastic DA120. The DA120 is just beyond amazing. It's lighter than this and about 20% more powerful. So lighter and more powerful is a jackpot. So if you can get a hold of a DA120, definitely do that. The DA100 has plenty of power, and the DLE111 has plenty of power. So this airframe will use all of them, and it's set up for all three of them, but get the one more suited to your financial obligations and how you want to fly. So I've got a DA100 in here, and I'm running, this is going to be an iMac prop. However, I'm going to switch it out depending on what my flying style is for that particular day. This is a 2612 carbon prop. However, I'm going to use a 28.8 for 3D flying. It's a little flatter and it has more of an instant push when the engine revs up, so it's a little better for 3D flying. This is going to be a little better for iMac flying. So choose your prop accordingly, as these props are not cheap. So do your research on how you fly, what your prop is, and what they recommend for that type of flying. For spinners, they're all conventional. Some people don't even use them, but there are carbon spinners which are a little lighter. This is an aluminum spinner. It works just as good. In my opinion, it's pretty much the same, so there's not much to go into there. Going to the bottom of the plane now, we have the two exhausts. Here is going to be your vent for your gas tank, very important. And then here, you can do two things with your choke. You can have it as a manual push in and close it type of thing, or you can have a servo mounted inside the plane. Either work very well. The servo will add a little bit of weight, so if you're a 3D flyer, you want to get rid of as much weight as possible. But if you're an iMac flyer, pattern flyer, the servo is going to be a little easier, so you don't have to go underneath the plane every time you start it. You can just flip a switch, it closes the choke, flip a switch, open the choke. So that's all good. So now we're just going to turn the plane on, and we're going to show you a little bit around it. Alright, so now we've selected what we want. So I have two switches on here. Switches are also going to be a choice. I'm just running these two high quality switches right here. You can also do a flag pin. Basically what that does is it's going to be somewhere wherever you want to locate it. You pull the pin out and it turns the plane on. When you push the pin in, it shorts out two wires and it turns the plane off. This is a little safer and more reliable than this, and it's lighter because these switches do add a little bit of weight. Again, if you're a 3D flyer, get rid of that weight. For this works perfectly for me, so I'm just going to turn the plane on. I got one on each side. Alright, now automatically you're going to hear a little bit of buzzing. That's okay for this size plane. So the throws I have 3D throws set up, so you're automatically on the ailerons, you're going to see a lot. It's set to 43 degrees on each aileron, up and down, and my low rates is going to be more for pattern and iMac throughout my routine. It's set to 31 degrees. I'm running about 60% expo in high rates and 50% in low rates. Expo is a very personal thing. Usually I run even less. I'm going to be changing this throughout how I like this plane to fly. I have yet to fly this particular plane, so I'm going to be changing the expo. I'll probably take it down to even 40%. That's usually about where I set up, but expo is a very personal thing. In the elevator, I'm running 50 degrees on high rates, and I believe I have it set to 30 degrees on low rates. Again, I'm running about 60% expo, and that's a good place to start on any 3D size plane. And then I just adjust it from there. For the rudder, basically instead of measuring degrees, I actually measure how far it is to the elevator. And I put it about 1 inch from each side and start there, and I'm going to keep it there. I don't set high or low rates for rudder. That's just my personal preference. You can. For low rates, you might want it about there. For low rates and high rates, you'd want it a little more. Now for the ignition, I'm running the same exact battery pack for the ignition. It's right here. It's a 2100 milliamp 2-cell 25C from Thunder Power. You can do two things with this. You can run a ignition pack that's specified for ignition. I prefer to use a lithium polymer because it has a little more punch and it heats up the block a little faster. It gives you a little better results in my opinion. So I run a lithium polymer pack. Also, I can use these LiPo packs in some of my smaller planes. So they're very versatile. So we're just going to turn the ignition on here. And you're going to see down here there's a blue light. That's going to be my power regulator for my ignition pack right here. And this just regulates the voltage just like any power regulator would. For any ignition system, I'd recommend you doing this. So we're just going to turn the plane off again. I'm going to go back to the gas tank. I did not do a lot on it as far as the tubing and everything, the way you route it. On any gas tank, if this is going to be your first gasser, you have 3 spots. You have your vent, which is going to be this one right here. This is going to be the fill and siphon tube, which is going to run straight down, usually in the front. So if you want to empty it, pick up the tail, it's going to move all the gas to the front. Simple. And then right up here in the front is going to be right here. This is going to go to your ignition, your throttle. So this is going to be the important one. In here there's going to be a clunk. The clunk is going to move with the gasoline as it moves about the plane. I don't know if you can see it in here. Right there. That's going to move as you roll in the air, and the gas tank goes with the gravity. It's going to follow the gas. Right now I've got a brand new tank in there and a brand new clunk, so I've got the gas in there to soften up the clunk. So it's been sitting in there for a little over a day, maybe 2 days. I like to sit them in there for about 4 days, and it gets them really nice and soft. And then when I'm done flying, I siphon out all the gas, and it should be okay after that. Gas choice is another big thing. You can run anything from 85 all the way up to avgas with these big engines. I would not recommend anything under 91. It's just dirty and it's not very powerful. So 91 up to 100 is very good. Avgas, for some of you that might not know, is aviation gas. It's 100 octane and it's ideal for something like this. It's going to give you the most power. The only downside to it is it does burn hotter. So you need to check your engine to make sure it has sufficient cooling to withstand the hotter burning. Now going into the wings, plugging into the wings. With pretty much every large plane, you're going to find 1 or 2 bolts like here, and then you're going to go into the front and see these little knobs, and you're going to put pins down into those knobs, and it's going to prevent it from pulling out. And there's also one on the other side. The pins aren't in there right now since I'm not flying, and honestly they're a huge pain to get in and out. But the pins are in my little box with goodies. So we're going to do that on both sides. Next, big thing. A lot of people don't use them, but they're a big thing. They're going to be servo safety clips. These are just a must-have for anyone flying giants, or anyone really flying anything that they're attached to. If you haven't seen them before, they look just like this, and all they do is they go around the servo wire and attach them together, so it's pretty much impossible to wiggle them out. Now let's talk about the power connectors I'm using for this plane. I'm using a mix between Dean's, which is right here, and then power pole. For some of you that may not know what power pole is, basically these. Some people don't like them because they actually unplug fairly easily. This is true, but they work perfectly good. They come with little clips that they go in between the holes, they hold them together, and it's pretty much impossible to get them out. And if you're running power pole or any type of connector that is easy to plug in and easy to get undone, have a safety pin, have a safety connector, and you'll be fine. With Deans or EC5 or EC3, you can really run with this. EC3s I wouldn't be worried about, since those are extremely powerful. They're very strong connectors. Deans are also very strong. I wouldn't worry about getting safety connectors with Deans or anything. Some people will use zip ties for Deans connectors. Right here I have 2 Deans connectors that never come undone, so I've zip tied those together just for extra safety, even though they'll pretty much never come undone, but just for extra safety I've got 2 zip tied there. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think I've missed anything. The last thing is going to be the ailerons. This is going to be a new challenge for you, as it was a brand new challenge for me that no one told me about. There's going to be 2 servos for each aileron. They're going to be tied together. Now this is very, very good, very strong, but it is a pain to set up. It takes a lot of tweaking, a lot of little things. So basically you see right here, there's 2 servos and they're both attached to each other. They're both attached to the aileron. Now, these are basically, they're either best friends or they're enemies, is the saying in the RC world. So either they're going to work together perfectly or they're going to be fighting against each other the whole time. A way to figure this out, a way to find out if they're fighting, is turn on your remote, turn on the plane. Okay, so we got the plane turned on. Now, if you can hear that buzzing, that's okay. They're not fighting against each other, that's just the weight of the aileron trying to just push against them. So if you watch, if I turn the plane off, the aileron is actually naturally going to fall. See that? That's just the weight of the aileron. That's how heavy the aileron itself is, so that's okay. The little bit of buzzing is just fine. What you don't want to hear is that. You don't want to hear a lot of buzzing. Right now I'm doing that, which is not that bad, but you don't want to hear that. That's the excessive buzzing is going to be bad, and you're going to burn out a servo. And I've had first-hand experience at a servo catching my plane on fire. That was not fun, and it burnt a hole through my covering. Luckily I caught it before any damage was done. But you definitely want to get these tuned in just right, or else you will have issues. They're tuned in very good now, so if you go either way, you don't really hear any buzzing, and that's what you want to look for. The same thing goes for the elevator. However, the elevators are a little easier to set up because they're individual, so you can hear a little bit of buzzing. Again, that's just the weight of the elevator, and as you move it, you don't hear really any buzzing, and that's good. The rudder is going to be the same thing. They're going to be attached to each other. These are a little easier, so if you listen, they're very good. They're in there very well. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the canopy, put the canopy on, and we're pretty much done giving a review on this plane. We're going to get the flight in very, very soon. The maiden flight on this plane is going to be up, and we're going to get that done. We got a little guy in here. He's going to prevail. He's going to be doing very well. So here's the canopy with the big planes. There's not going to be any knob here. With some of the smaller 3D planes, there's a little knob you push back and it attaches. They've gotten rid of that completely. When you fly these bigger giant scales, you really never take the canopy off. You take it off once every 2 or 3 flights, and just to exchange out receiver batteries. So we actually have screws, 1, 2, and then the third one is up there. So we have 3 screws on each side, and this is going to hold the canopy in. And they're very easy to put on and off. This is not a big deal at all. So yeah, there's the plane. It's ready for its first flight. If you have any questions, put it at the bottom, private message me, do all that. Hit that subscribe button to see more reviews, see the main flight on this one. and I'll get back to you. Till then, this is Voro signing off. Have fun flying.